Reconvening open session. The time is 7 o'clock. There is no action to report from closed session. Item number 6, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. And we have Quentin, are you here? Will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Quentin.
Thank you.
Item number 7, adoption of the agenda as presented. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
We would
Elizabeth?
like to have an amendment to the agenda to move item 15A, which is discuss first reading of a new textbook adoption for Half Moon Bay High School, to 11D under reports and information.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right. It's been moved in second that we move item 15A to 11D. All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. Passes 5-0. All right. Number 8, Dr. Shuck. This is student staff public recognition.
I am very excited to invite Principal John Corey, also our Assistant Superintendent, to come up and share some wonderful news about students and parents at Kings Mountain Elementary School.
Thank you, Dr. Shuck. Good evening, President Livingston, members of the board. It's an honor this evening to stand before you as the principal of Kings Mountain. I know sometimes people ask me, aren't you the Assistant Superintendent for Personnel and People Services? And I say, yes, I am, but I'm also the very proud principal of Kings Mountain Elementary School. And it is our night to shine this evening, and appropriately so, beginning with one of our students. I'd like to invite Quentin Meza to please come up. And one of our many shining stars up at Kings Mountain Elementary School, not only because he's awesome, but also because he's a great speller. And I can share with you, as a proud English major from Chico State, I always tell students that spelling counts. I was not a big fan of the inventive spelling trend that went on in my early years in teaching. But Quentin is our representative. He is our spelling champ from Kings Mountain. We wanted to bring him, and I think his parents are in the audience as well. Would you mind standing up and let's hear it for Quentin's parents as well? And I'd like to invite Quentin just maybe to tell us a little bit about the spelling bee at Kings Mountain and where you're headed to next, representing not only Kings Mountain but the Cabrillo Unified School District as well.
First of all, good evening, everybody. Thanks. I am Quentin Meza, and I'm a 4th grader at Kings Mountain Elementary School. Winning a spelling bee was a challenge, and I'm very proud of it. My winning word was palliative. And I want one volunteer from the board members try to spell it. Try to spell it correctly. Does anybody wanna?
Palliative.
Okay, you spelled it correctly.
He's a doctor.
Thank you, Kurt.
Pull that one out.
That's an handy word, yeah.
And now I'm off to Berkeley for another challenge. Thank you.
And this is a certificate presented to you on behalf of the Cabrillo Unified School District Governing Board. We wish you well in the next competition. We know you'll represent Kings Mountain and Cabrillo very well. Let's hear it again for Quentin.
Mr. Corey, when does Quentin go? When is the next one? He goes to Berkeley when?
I think it's is it the 21st? 21st of
Okay,
February.
soon.
Good luck.
So if there's any coaching that might be available from any of the board members. Very articulate Kings Mountain student. Very well done. Bravo. Next, I would like to invite up, we have many most valuable parents up at Kings Mountain, but without question, our next recogee is very, very special to Kings Mountain. I'd like to invite up Tom Hull. Tom. And I do not believe that this is Tom's first recognition in front of the governing board. He has been present, in my experience at Kings Mountain, from day one. He is present. The amount of time that Tom spends at Kings Mountain, and I know the staff will agree with me, and I think I've shared with the governing board before, my personnel hat was, are you on the payroll? Because he is there in the morning. He is there at recess, he's there at lunch, he's there after school. He serves as our PTO KMAP president, and many hats that he wears. He's also in charge of fundraising, making sure that the money comes in to keep many of our programs in place. But he's also more important than just the money. It's about the culture and the can-do attitude that Tom brings to the table and brings to Kings Mountain. Our school will not be the same without Tom, without his family. He is being promoted. I don't want to say graduation, but he's going through the promotion process. He has a son also, I think an 8th grader, 7th grader at Cunha. So moving on in that tradition as well, and I know our schools and districts will continue to benefit from his presence. So again, I'd like to honor Tom, and we actually have a little something, and for Tom. And it is with permission. I think there's a special day coming up this weekend that you can re-gift as you feel appropriate. Re-gifting is certainly appropriate. But we'd also like to present you with a certificate from the governing board for your commitment and dedication to Kings Mountain Elementary School. Let's hear it for Tom. And next, we would like to recognize 2 of our staff members, and really the entire staff could easily stand before you, but right now I'd like to recognize Diane Siegel and Joan Shoemaker. Can you come on up? And Joan, Joni, is new to our Kings Mountain community and has absolutely had a positive impact from day one, working with our students directly in the classroom. She's had a positive impact from day one. I was in her classroom this morning and doing an observation for kindergarten, 1st grade, and it was just amazing to see not just the powerful instruction in a very important area, reading comprehension, but also the love and care that was just demonstrated from our students to Joan. So we'd like to recognize your efforts, and here's a certificate, and also, and this may not be regifted, this is for you. Thank you very much. And also this evening, we would like to recognize Diane Siegel. Diane is not only an intervention teacher, but she's also the site director. And her contributions in her 2nd year have been nothing less than impressive, keeping our school solidly based in instruction, but also great care. No one cares more about the students at Kings Mountain, in my humble opinion, than Diane. She works well beyond her hours and stays late at night, even on the mountain, with the threat of animals running abound. She is there early in the morning and late in the evening, and we'd like to present and recognize Diane for your efforts. and also not to be regifted. And I'd also like to recognize, I'm not sure how many other Kings Mountain staff members are here, but Debbie Silvera, since you're up, I'd also like to give a shout out to Debbie Silvera, our administrative assistant and one of the most caring and loving, dedicated teachers in our district. Let's hear it for Debbie. I'm not sure if I left out any other Kings Mountain staff members, but certainly an honor to recognize the mountain this evening and appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, John. I'm just busy giving back.
So next for our recognitions, we have a first. Well, we have two firsts, double firsts. Last week, many of you know that we had National Signing Day, which is a huge day in our sports world in the United States, where we have athletes all across the country who are recognized not only for their scholastic achievements, but also for their athletic achievements. And for Cabrillo Unified, we had 2 students who were recognized and who were signed to Division I schools. So I would like to invite them both up and then explain a little bit about them. First, I'd like to invite Jonathan Rico Contreras. And second, Shane Penner. Okay, well, that happened after.
Before you begin, gentlemen, there's a television camera right there, and I'd love for you to be on it. Turn around and look at that camera. There you go.
So let me tell you about each of these students. Jonathan Rico has been signed to the University of Pacific to play soccer, a full ride 4-year complete scholarship. Jonathan is a migrant student in Cabrillo Unified, and his father, Francisco, is a custodian at Cunha Intermediate School, and his mom and dad are both here. Shane Penner has received a 4-year full-ride scholarship to Loyola Marymount University for soccer again, and his mom, I saw, is here. Anything that either of you would like to say?
Yeah, I'd like to say thank you for throwing this event for us. It was nice to get recognition finally from the community. And I'd also like to say a big thanks to the Boys and Girls Club, because I started there in 6th grade, and they really got me on track with discipline and getting homework done. And that's pretty much what school is about, is time management and getting your stuff done.
This is okay. All right, congratulations. They're proud of you. I cried last week when we announced that. I cried again tonight when we announced it. Pretty awesome. Next, I would like to introduce the Executive Director of the Cabrillo Education Foundation, who is going to share some incredible news about how our parent community and our staff are supporting the students in Cabrillo Unified. And then we have a lot of recognitions to make to people here in the audience and who may not also be here.
Yes, that's me. Should I change this?
No, right there's good.
Okay.
I'm standing right here, and that's no slight to the people behind me. And please don't comment on any of the bald spots that you might see. My name's Keith Cernak. I'm the Executive Director of the Cabrillo Education Foundation. And just to give you a little background on myself, I formerly was the creator of Partners, which was the largest collaboration of school systems, health systems, community agencies, and businesses in the United States to address educational and health issues. It became a national best practice model. It also became an international model for development. I became an advisor to the World Health Organization and presented it around the world from Moscow to Australia. My expertise is in strategic planning, needs assessments, and, as you can imagine, partnerships. Since I've been at CEF, we've gone through an extensive process of looking at needs assessment, and where we can make the greatest difference. We are now coordinated with the state and the school education priorities, and we're part of the CUSD strategic planning process. We are needs-based, we're outcome-driven, and essentially we are looking at where we can move the needle for student success. One of those areas is literacy. We all know from K to 3, children learn to read. After that, they read to learn. 55% of the students in our district, the third graders, are not proficient in reading by the end of third grade. Our goal is to change this so that all these kids have the opportunity for advanced learning, careers, and success throughout life. With that, we have allocated $57,600 to continue the Columbia Teachers College Professional Development Program. We've also allocated another $5,000 for the K-1 Summer Bridging Program to help literacy for at-risk youth. In the area of science, only 54% of our students are proficient in science by 10th grade. We want to dramatically improve this proficiency in what is one of the most science-enriched areas in the entire world. It's right over the hill. And for that, we have funded $45,000 for the science teacher program. And essentially what that is looking at how we can best integrate Common Core standards with next generation science standards. And with that 45,000, CUSD has also contributed funds to help us bring that program to a reality. So it is a partnership between both CEF and CUSD. We also have contributed another $4,800 in science in the Secondary Collaboration Initiative, which is essentially professional development for our teachers so that they have expertise in next generation science standards. Third area that we're looking at and we've been very involved with is critical thinking. And we want all our students to have critical thinking skills to be successful as they go forward in life and in their careers. And one of those areas is as we're dealing with early literacy, we know how important that is. But we're also want to be focusing on technological literacy. And this is interesting. My younger daughter is a senior at Berkeley's Haas School of Business. And she goes, Dad, I hate computer science. I never want to take a computer science course in my life. I never want to be doing that. But she said, for the jobs that I'm looking at, it all requires computer coding and programming. That is the new language of the future. And this is interesting. This just came out of the Chronicle today, and I just want to read this quote because I think it's important to what we're looking to do here. It's called Teach Every, and it's in the Chronicle from today, Teach Every San Francisco Kid to Code. And it says, while in the past, ideas could be spread solely through the written word, our future will also be written in code. Change makers, thinkers, artists, and inventors will require deep knowledge of this digital medium to build a better world. And with that, we have launched a seamless continuum of pilot projects from elementary through high school in computer coding and programming for $40,222. We've also funded the GATE program this year again for $8,000 and this 5th grade musical instrumentation program for $7,500. So in all, we have allocated $168,000. And every one of those initiatives, we have base funded. In other words, the base for it to be successful. And what we're looking is to take those to scale. And there's also other priorities that we thought were great we didn't have the funds for, but we want to also see if we can make them a reality. And to do this, we're going to be building partnerships. Partnerships with other foundations, partnerships with high tech, and looking for grants. Because we want to be able to leverage our allocation and create a multiplier effect. And we have the perfect vehicle to do this. As you all know, we have an endowment. And that endowment, as it grows, it allows us to increase our allocation each year. And when we look at it, student needs are here for the long term, and our endowment is here for the long term. So at the end of the day, all this leads to is we want to develop critical skills for our students to be successful in a 21st century learning environment. And to have those skills for the global economy and the world that they're entering, and to have the best possible school system to provide this. So, as I said, I've traveled the world with the World Health Organization, and it sounds cliche that it takes a village to raise a child, but I believe that's true. I also believe that it takes a village to educate a child. And I want to thank all of you here tonight and all of your efforts for being part of that village. Thank you so much.
So the allocation of those funds did not come in isolation. And in the organization of CEF, Keith is the only person that receives any kind of financial compensation for the work that he does. There are board members that have given years of commitment and service to providing the guidance and the vision and the leadership, including the executive director, Deb Hedger. And what we'd like to do this evening is to recognize the board members and the task force members that met over the course of the last several months to review each of those requests for allocation and to determine which ones they felt would give us the most propelling forward and moving the needle, as Keith mentioned. Also later on this evening, when I'm sharing with you about the Big Lift initiative, it's important to know that CEF has been one of our partners in that initiative, and Keith has played a key role with Deb in helping us to formulate our proposal to the county for those funds. So I'm going to call up the names of the board members and the task force members, even if they're not here in the audience. If they are, we'd like you to come up and get a certificate. And then Keith has Starbucks cards he's supposed to give you, but they're in his pocket, so you're going to have to get them out of his pocket.
I'm on the wrong.
Deb Hedger. John Ediger. Chris Dobrow. Retired teacher from Cabrillo, Jill Ballard. Current parent and SIPA organizer, Amy Risk. Mike Alifano. David Casantini, Liz Murphy, Heather Strombaugh, Val Dubois, former board member Mario Vasquez, humbly Elizabeth Shuck, the allocations chairperson, Teresa McWhirt, who isn't here this evening. Her daughter's in the talent show at El Granada. Rosalva Segura, who was here in the audience but stepped out to help someone. Graciela Krabenschmidt. Our partner superintendent, who's also a parent in our school district, Amy Wooliver. The teacher from Kings Mountain that Mr. Corey recognized, Debbie Silveria. Teacher on special assignment, Lynn Kelly. Parent Suzanne DeFore. Teacher Shannon Murray. Parent Tracy Yerby. Parent Gisette Sperendi. Board Member Dr. Kurt Reamer. Retired Cabrillo Unified School District teacher Barbara Lohman. Parent Sandy Kalman. Parent Susan Stewart. And parent Mari Ochoa Holcomb. So on behalf of Cabrillo Unified School District and the Cabrillo Education Foundation, thank you for your hundreds, if not thousands of hours to the work that you commit for our children.
Thank you, Dr. Shuck. Did everybody get their Starbucks gift certificate?
I'm holding nose, but trust me.
That leads us to item number 9, comments from the public related to items not on this agenda. At this time, the board appreciates and values input from the community, but we are not able to respond to any issue brought forward at this time. And at this, for number 1, I'd like to begin with Ms. Nicole Fernandez from Senator Jerry Hill's office.
Madam President and board members, thank you so much for having me tonight. I also want to thank the members of the audience for entertaining me today. I'm here on behalf of Senator Hill, and he wanted me to come here tonight to present a commendation to the Kings Mountain community for their distinguished school designation. Sorry, I'll point it this way too. Our distinguished school designation from last year. He's so proud to represent the Coast Side in the Senate, and I think we picked an appropriate night to come tonight because we had such wonderful examples of what Kings Mountain has in it. Quentin, a student who's going so far in his spelling bee. Tom, a parent who is adding so much to the school. Great teachers like Ms. Schumacher and Ms. Silvera, who are doing such wonderful things, and we have the principal and the assistant superintendent here too, who's leading it all. So it takes a village. And so thank you all so much for doing for what you do. And so thank you. I'll present this to Mr. Corey.
Could you take a picture? Could you take a picture?
That would be great.
And I actually wish that Quentin was still here. He had to go home and study for the spelling test. But really, I am not going to put my hands on this award. This award is an award for our entire community, an award for our students, an award for our staff, an award for our parents. It's an award for the mountain. We too have a saying on the mountain. It's not, it takes a village. We say on the mountain, it takes a mountain. I know just to complete this distinguished school application, when it first came about, I was a former principal of a 4-time California Distinguished School and National Blue Ribbon. I went, oh my gosh, this is about 150 hours of work. But the leaders stepped forward. Diane Siegel and Miley Springer were our point, but with lots of support from parents, lots of support from the community. But indeed, it's a very special award. We'd like to thank Mr. Hill for his recognition, and Nicole, thank you for coming out here. But really, I would like the award to be given to our students and our staff, so deserving of this award.
John, up here, smile. Everybody. Smile.
And if I may, and I promise I won't speak much more this evening, but I'd also like to recognize every other elementary school in our district. Farallon View, El Granada, Hatch, not to forget about Cunha, the high school in Pilositos. But this recognition is given to our district, and there's no way that Kings Mountain could be recognized as being distinguished without the contributions of the principals, the staff at the other site, so deservingly so. In so many different capacities. But this is an award not just for Kings Mountain, but for every school and for our district as well. And I thank you, everyone, for being here.
Thank you, John, and congratulations on behalf of the board to all those involved at Kings Mountain. We're proud of you. Mr. Eli Ross.
I don't know where to begin. I was sitting here with this gentleman, and we both looking, short on hair, and it popped into my mind at that time about the fellow who kept 2 rabbits in his house because it was better to have a hair or 2 than none. But, you know, you haven't recognized the unsung heroes who are the substitute teachers. I've never seen them come up, get a recognition and stuff. Actually, they're your first combat troops to take care of the exigencies that come up in the daily routine of being a substitute. So I just thought I'd mention that to you. No applause. And I see a few of my boys made really good getting scholarships. I think that's really nice, isn't that? Okay. Anyway, my comments and appearance here today is somewhat innocuous and inconsequential, but I did want to call to your attention there is a problem with substitutes getting assigned. The current automatic system that is set up is that whoever calls in first is the one who gets the position. Previously to this automatic system, Connie would have a rotation matter so that everybody got a chance along the line. And I just wanted to share this thought with the board and the administration. They might want to consider, you all might want to consider taking a look at the substitute program. And I think the district could even develop one of its own that would be much more effective. And I don't know what you folks pay for that system, and having our own electronic specialist, that they could possibly do that and do it better and more conveniently and maybe for less money. Well, anyway, that's the thought I wanted to share with you, so I hope you'll have a chance somewhere along the line to take advantage of that. And with that, with my apologies, I must make my exit because Valentine's Day is coming up. And my lady friend gave me a big kiss, and she says, "I'm kissing you off." Well, I don't know what that meant, but anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Next, Mr. John Ullum.
Thanks for having me up here. Any questions I ask will be rhetorical in nature. I know you're not going to answer them. As you know, in 2012, you passed Measure S, and you got $81 million in bonding authority. Since then, you've issued 2 series of bonds, Series A and Series B, the par value of each being $18 million and $20 million. The thing that you did, though, is you sold those bonds at a premium. You offered interest rates so enticing that people were willing to pay, investors were willing to bid up to $125 to buy a $100 bond. And those are the interest rate you'll all be paying for 30 years. Rates that were jacked up purposefully so that an extra 5% could be skimmed off the top of the bond. Now, the State Attorney General has issued an opinion on this. The legality is very questionable, especially the part about paying the underwriters out of this premium money for the costs. Her opinion has been stated, was made clear. You can look it up very easily. I'm not sure the staff tells the board these things or if you're aware of it, but if you look up in the bond buyer guides and the bond trade magazines, you say it was a real big deal. And the AG has said that it's not only questionably legal, it's morally and ethically wrong. Because you could, what's to constrain you from offering any interest rate? Why not sell them for $150, $200? So at any rate, I'd ask you to look into it. And then though you're not going to answer a question, the question I would have for you tonight is, on the Series A bonds, you borrowed $18 million at par, but you actually received $21 million some odd dollars. This was due to the premium that you offered in interest rates. Series B bonds, you asked for $20 million, and the interest rates were jacked in such a way as that you got 21 million and some odd $100,000. So out of the $81 million in authority that you were given by the taxpayers, how much is left? Would I subtract 18 million and 20 million? Or would I subtract 21 million and 19 million? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ullum. Next, Ms. Elizabeth Pearlson.
Hi, good evening. I haven't spoken in front of a board of any kind since probably the early 90s when I was a public school teacher in Oakland Unified School District, actually. And I'm just here tonight. And actually, I think I picked a really good night because this was really inspiring. It was really fun to hear about the great things of what the schools are accomplishing. And even though I'm here to beg for more immersion classes for Hatch's kindergarten program, I'm kind of now interested in looking at Kings Mountain. I mean, they did win that great award, so I think I picked a good night to be here. I was touring Hatch today because I'm going to have, my daughter is going to be entering kindergarten in the fall, and the word on the street is that there may be a consideration of having one less kindergarten class this year for the fall class, so it would be 3 classes instead of 4. And as a parent, I'm really concerned about this because I really wanted this opportunity for my daughter. And I've also heard that this year there's a lot of siblings who get an automatic in to the program. So I'm just here probably prematurely because I know registration is not complete. Consequently, we don't know the lottery situation, but it's just as a parent and you start hearing things from other people, it just looks like this year they're considering actually decreasing the number of students that can go. And I think this is a concern just because the program has become super successful and super popular. And I'm hoping that the board is interested in continuing to actually grow bilingual education on the coast, because I think you guys this is the forefront of where this is happening, and it is definitely the wave of the future. So that's really all I had to say. Thank you for listening. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Ms. Pearlson. All right, moving on. Item number 10, representative reports. CUTA? Hello out there? Hearing none, moving on. CSEA? I think Stieg had said he was not going to be here tonight, so. All right.
It's his birthday tomorrow.
Is it really?
It's Stig's birthday.
Big birthday.
Big birthday, big 5-0.
Oh, he's, wow.
He's been telling everybody for 3 days, so I'm not.
All right, that brings us to, oops, I'm sorry. Brings us to item number 11, reports, information, and presentations. We're going to receive a report on Cabrillo Unified School District implementation of the Common Core state standards.
We
Dr.
are,
Chuck?
and I would invite you to move your seats so you don't get blinded by the light. I'm going to invite Principal Joy Dardanelle, one of our inspirational leaders for Cabrillo Unified, to speak on the implementation of Common Core at Farallon View Elementary School.
Hello. Hello. Thank you for having me here. Just checking to see who's behind me. Okay. I feel very fortunate to work with Martha Ladd, and I feel even more fortunate to present about the Common Core after her. So I'm going to be building on what she talked about and really looking more specifically at Farallon View. And we did plan this, so we talked about how she would present more of the Common Core in general, and then I would be able to add a little bit more about what we're doing specifically at Farallon View with our Common Core implementation, growing from what she talked about. So the first thing that I'd like to talk about with with the Common Core is that I think that even though right now I am a principal, I was a CUTA teacher in this district 3 years ago, and I still remember very clearly how it feels to be a teacher. And I remember that there are so many things that happen in the classroom when you're teaching, and you play the role of making sure that kids are safe. You know, when I was teaching 4th grade, making sure that they didn't have their hands on the circuits too long when they were attached to batteries, making sure that kids were wearing goggles when they needed to, making sure that kids were safe on the playground. And if there was a problem between students, having to be the disciplinarian and actually the counselor in some cases, trying to figure out what actually happened and investigating. And when you have students who are really sad, trying to comfort them and trying to figure out what it is that's going on. Do you need food? Do you need sleep? Do I need to talk to your parents? Is there a problem? What can I do? Do you need a hug? And those are the many, many things that go on in a teacher's head during the day before they even start thinking about curriculum, because those are the things that really underlie what makes us have the ability to actually teach, is making sure that all those things at the base are taken care of. And so the reason why I bring that up is because I think that it's so important for us as people who provide professional development and support for teachers to keep that in mind about what's happening on the daily basis with students in the classroom, so that we could provide the teachers with the really focused professional development that they need, and with the understanding that they don't have 100% of their attention on what we're talking about, really honestly. So my question in doing that is, what is at the heart of the Common Core standards? And the reason why I ask myself this question is because I saw this quote by Albert Einstein that said, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. And I don't know if he really said that, but it's attributed to him. And when I think about that, I think that we have to ask ourselves what the Common Core really is, because we can't just throw strategies at teachers, because there are so many other things that are drawing their attention that it's not going to stick. And so in doing that, what I worked on last year with our staff was to really come up with what we call the theory of action. And the theory of action, which I'll read it to you in a second, is the way that we tried to come up with what the heart of the Common Core is. What is it that we're not doing yet that we need to do in order to really prepare students to be college and career ready? So I'm gonna read it one time through, just listen to it, and I will go into it in a little bit more depth. If students solve meaningful problems in collaboration using a variety of tools and explain their thinking in a variety of mediums using evidence and academic vocabulary, then they will be able to persevere in problem solving and construct viable arguments. Now, I know that that sounds really meaty, but there's a structure to this that I'll explain. Oopsie, let me go back to that, okay? Okay, so the first part is that when we solve meaningful problems and in collaboration, I actually had a different slide, which is okay, I'll just use this one. So when we solve meaningful problems and in collaboration, then what we're doing is we're giving them opportunities to look at problems that actually are meaty, and not just problems like 356 times 5, but more thinking about, you know, if you had a supply of something and you had it for 5 years, how many days would that last? That starts to get on the verge of solving meaningful problems, but when they actually can look at what real life problems, such as how much rain has actually fallen in the past couple of days, looking at how we can use that and comparing it on graphs, then we start looking at actual meaningful problems. The piece about collaboration when we solve meaningful problems is really important as well, in that, as we know, to prepare students for being college and career ready, it's not enough for them to solve problems in isolation. We have to be able to actually learn how to do these things together and build ideas off of each other. Using a variety of tools is also important in solving meaningful problems, because teachers, parents, students, let me pull myself back. I'm glad Tony's laughing. Okay. So in terms of solving with a variety of tools, we can't just use paper and pencil anymore, and we can't even just use the computer. We have to use everything we have. So if your teacher did not give you the manipulatives, the blocks, or whatever it is, what are the ways that you're going to be able to solve it? And so we want to see classrooms now where teachers aren't giving them, this is the exact cutout that I've already made for you, and now use this cutout to solve it. Now it's more, okay, well, here's a variety of tools that we've been using throughout the day, throughout the year. What of these tools do you think you can use to help you solve this problem? So there's a lot more having to negotiate what actually is useful in problem solving. And then the other piece to that is explaining their thinking. So how do we get students to actually explain their thinking? And this is so different than the way that thinking and students used to explain their thinking, in that if you said to somebody, okay, well, how do you know that's 25 plus 36? Well, because the 5 and the 6, and then I put 5 plus 6, and then it's 11, so I put the 1 down there, and I put a 1 up here. And we want students to actually be able to decompose numbers and actually think, well, 25 plus 36. Well, I know that there's, 25 cents. Okay, 25 is like 25 cents. 36 is like 25 cents and 10 cents. And we want them to start being able to pull things apart, put them together, and think more creatively about how they solve problems. Another key part of the Common Core is about using evidence. It's a huge shift. We used to talk about text-to-world connections, text-to-self connections, or text-to-text connections, meaning I read this poem. What does it make you think about? What experiences have you had that could be related to this poem? Or what experiences do you know about in the world that might be related to this poem? And now we're saying, well, how can we relate this actually to the text itself? Let's not just talk about that time when we also had fun and we went to the beach, but what can you tell us about your understanding about this text, and not just talk about other experiences that aren't related? And then academic vocabulary, which is something that we continue to come back to, because that's really a basis for developing, especially for English language learners, being able to develop those academic conversations so that we're able to talk across the curriculum with other people. The second part of the theory of action is thinking about, if students are able to do all of these things, then they'll be able to persevere in problem solving as well as construct viable arguments. And when we think about that, those are actually in the math practices, which is also part of the Common Core. Math practice 1 is persevering in problem solving, and math practice 3 is constructing viable arguments. So when we thought about the heart of the Common Core, we chose those 2 math practices to create our theory of action. Now, I said that if you can't say it simply, you don't understand it well enough. That doesn't seem that simple, but what it does is it helps us to create a professional development plan that's actually constantly tied to these 2 main concepts of problem solving and explaining thinking. And in looking at that, one of the 4 of the ways that we really look at solving meaningful problems is through looking at the next generation science standards, especially because we're developing our environmental science focus at Fair Lawn View. And the next generation science standards, similar to the Common Core standards, have science and engineering practices, which have us move away a little bit from just knowing content, but actually looking at how do we analyze this information, or how do we observe data. We also have developed a strong relationship with the Silicon Valley Math Initiative, and through that we've been working on different types of performance tasks, which helps us to raise the level of the type of problem solving that we give students the opportunity to participate in. And we also continue with Reading and Writing Workshop, which again is a much more real-world version of learning about how to read as well as writing. In terms of explaining their thinking, some of the things that we're working on district-wide and as well as at Fair Lawn View is looking at academic conversations and number talks in math. In writing in particular, we're using the units of study and to look at argument writing and opinion writing, which is a really, I think, in my opinion, a very moving shift that we've had, which is very exciting. At Fair Lawn View, we're also working on developing our environmental science focus, and some of the main concepts in it are looking at innovation, interdependence, and conservation as some of the main concepts that we're working toward. This is something that we're trying to develop as within the Common Core as well, and we're doing classroom projects, developing school events, as well as community partnerships in the work that we're doing. And the classroom projects include a science and engineering project, a community project, as well as a field trip that each of the grade levels are participating in. And some of the school events that we have in our environmental science focus have been the Bio Blitz, as well as our Oceans Week, which will be coming up in May, our Recycled Art Show, which will be also in May, and our family gardening club activities. One of the big things that we're working on this year is developing a pumpkin patch. We're hoping to have some production of pumpkins. We're not too sure how many we'll get. And so just to share also, the way that we have our format is through instructional strategies and concepts, grade level collaboration, and growing our shared conversation. That includes doing some work online so that when, instead of having teachers come back and reporting back in person, we have also digital spaces where teachers can share their information with each other. And the next steps that we have right now are developing our professional development plan for 2015 and 2016, sharing the practice of what we do, which I know Martha Ladd also spoke about, and then moving toward doing more analysis of student work so that we could really see how students are doing within the Common Core. So, thank you.
Thank you, Joy. All right.
Thank you.
Is that the end of the?
I think the next one is,
Next one's yours.
Big Lift. Next is Big Lift?
Yeah, next is Big
Then
Lift.
you get a break for a minute of the light. So I wanted to share with you, I mentioned earlier that Cabrillo Education Foundation has partnered with our school district along with several of the community agencies on a Big Lift grant and ask for over $500,000 to support preschool. But I wanted to give a little background about the Big Lift initiative, which is sponsored by the Silicon Valley Community Foundation, the San Mateo County Office of Education, and the County of San Mateo. So those three agencies, facilitated by the Peninsula Partnership Leadership Council, of which our superintendent, Dr. Rourke, is a member of, is looking at the idea that, as Keith Cernak mentioned from CEF, that although San Mateo is one of the wealthiest counties in our nation, 43% of the children are not reading at grade level by the third grade. And for overall in our county, 60% of our children of color, our Latino, African American, and Pacific Islander children, are not reading proficiently by third grade. So the purpose of the Big Lift is to advance this vision for closing the achievement gap and increasing proficiency. And the reason it's a big lift is it's a huge concept that we would be able to make that move. So the primary focus would be to have a comprehensive school readiness strategy focused on high-quality preschool for 3- and 4-year-olds that leads to an aligned and sequenced set of high-quality learning experiences in kindergarten through third grade. The second is a focus on reducing chronic absenteeism in the early grades. The third focus is developing inspiring summer learning opportunities that enable children to maintain their academic and developmental gains. And the fourth focus is supporting parents and caregivers as children's first and most influential teacher to provide rich learning environments in the home. Last month, our governing board supported a resolution in recognizing the Big Lift as an important initiative. So the first amount of money that was offered for grant funding invited collaborative proposals from communities, not from individual school districts, that were interested in improving those outcomes. And it was focused on 11 communities in San Mateo County where proficiency scores are particularly low. Those communities include Bayshore, Brisbane, Cabrillo, Jefferson Elementary, La Honda Pescadero, Pacifica, Ravenswood, Redwood City, San Bruno Park, San Mateo Foster City, and South San Francisco. The first year of funding will focus on creating brand new, high-quality preschool spaces for 3- and 4-year-olds in those targeted communities. The money for this grant was made available through the County of San Mateo and the National Corporation for National and Community Services Social Innovation Fund grant. The grant went from about $10 million offered from our San Mateo County to an additional $16 million coming from the Social Innovation Fund. So the grant also went from becoming something that all 11 counties could have counted on receiving some funding to only 2 to 4 of those communities being awarded grants. So the level of importance of completing this grant and writing a really powerful application increased, which is when Cabrillo Education Foundation and Cabrillo partnered together with the Coastside Children's Program to be the co-leads on this grant, to be able to show that this is a community-wide effort and supported by the Head Start program, the Migrant Los Listos preschool program, and all of the communities across our Coastside, including Half Moon Bay Library, Coastside Hope, the Chamber and other agencies. So we have written a grant to ask for additional spaces for preschool. For us in Cabrillo, it would mean longer days for the Los Listos program, which currently is only 100 days long, 3 hours a day. We're asking for 200 days in the school year, and for a 3-year-old program, so that we would have actually a 2-year preschool program for children coming in, giving our kids an extra year of preschool. Coastside Children's Program is asking to enhance spaces at their 2 sites where they have preschool, and the Head Start is asking to increase spaces and enhance spaces. Very calculated, different formulas for those amounts of money, but our ask was for over $500,000. It would be a 3-year grant at minimum, could be extended to a 7-year grant. So it is our hope that we will hear good news. The first set of documentation that we submitted was 165 pages. That was the grant and the backup documentation. The second that I got a further request for was 300, how many, Patty? 358 pages was the second set of documentation. So you can see the level of detail that they're looking for and searching for the commitment of a community. And if we do hear that we are being considered, we will come back and ask for board approval to continue, because it will be a very intensive process of a lot of accounting for the funds that we will receive, because it's federal dollars. It's no longer local, state, or county dollars. So that's what the ask is for. That's the first of many programs that Big Lift will represent. Sometimes when I'm in the community, people will say to me, oh, well, Big Lift's going to take care of everything. Well, not right now. The only money that's available through Big Lift is for preschool. Eventually, there will be dollars coming to support the chronic absenteeism, the parent engagement, and the summer learning. So I'm happy to answer questions, but I wanted you to know that we had submitted that on behalf of our community with the resolution that you supported, as did the Cabrillo Education Foundation Board and the CCP Board, all put resolutions in to support the application. Freya.
Thank you for all that work and your co-leads as well. What kind of a timeline do you have?
So they have told us that we will know by March 3rd or 15th, but that seems like a pretty short turnaround time to look at those grants. And again, only 2 of the 11 communities will receive funding.
Oh.
So will the other funds only be available to those that receive it for this one, or will there be opportunity to access the other programs, the absenteeism and the parent engagement, even if we don't get the preschool?
Those funds that are set aside right now are only for the preschool program.
No, I know, but if we did not get the preschool program, would there be an opportunity to apply in a year, or when they do?
When there are additional funds,
other
yes,
ones?
absolutely.
That's not tied to the preschool one. So,
Correct.
And when are they imagining that those other
I haven't heard the expectation on when they think that there would be other dollars. I think a lot of the energy has been going towards this preschool application.
What, you said 500,000, is that per year? Wonderful.
500,000 per year for between 3 and 7 years.
Thank you.
It would just be 2 schools during that duration in San Mateo County.
2 communities. So for us, it actually represents 3 schools, Los Listos, Coastside Children's Program, and the Head Start. But we represent 1 community.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Fingers crossed.
So President Livingston, if you would like to move so I don't blind you, I'm going to turn on Mr. Corey's.
All right. Well, just let me say that we're
I'm
now
sorry.
going to receive and discuss report on the enrollment status of the elementary schools. Mr. Corey.
My apologies.
I just wanted to be formal.
As we should be.
Thank you, President Livingston. This evening, we have a report being presented to the governing board to help understand the process that's involved in enrollment, specifically at our elementary schools, our 4 distinguished elementary schools, and also to speak to the intra and inter-district process as well to provide additional information for you. So as you can see on the slide, there is a transitional K and a kindergarten registration in our district that begins in January. This year it began on January 20th. That date is fairly consistent year to year. And it also just coincides with our staffing. Staffing is a process that is jointly processed both by the personnel department and the business department. And this is a sheet that's probably very familiar to a lot of our administrators in the room. We've referred to it as our FTE calculation sheet. And on this calculation sheet, you can see projected enrollment for TK, projected enrollment for kindergarten, and then obviously our rollover grade level projections. Current kindergarten students are rolled over to first grade to second, and you can see the total number of students outlined in the chart, K through 3 and also 4 through 5. The numbers are very important for a variety of different reasons, but most importantly, as a principal myself, I look to the upper right-hand corner and I see the FTE, which is the full-time equivalent staffing that is allocated to the site. So for example, in this chart, you will see that Farallon View for this school year was allocated a total of 14 teachers to actually put on their board. Sometimes it involves a hiring of additional staff member, and sometimes it means retaining all of the staff that are currently at the site. In the lower corner, we also provided both our board policy 5111. I do not think I could see that number without my glasses. New glasses, by the way. Thank you, Cabrillo. And also our administrative regulations as well, 5111 for admission. And we also have an administrative regulation regarding district residency. So that's basically how our enrollment process begins. We then subsequently begin our sibling open enrollment notification process. The letters are sent out to parents, notifying parents of the sibling opportunity for the intra-district, and this is intra within our district, and also notifications are sent out beginning in December and April, notifying parents of the opportunity to participate in this process as well. We also then continue the sibling open enrollment lottery, which is at the end of January. We just recently conducted our open enrollment sibling lottery. I think maybe we had a total of 7 to 8 students district-wide who currently have a brother or sister attending an elementary site. And we pulled lottery, literally names out of the hat, to determine rank with regards to who would have the first opportunity, based on space availability, to attend the same school as an older brother or sister. And then you'll also see that on our ongoing elementary staffing meetings, March through August, we continue to look at current enrollment, and dependent on space availability, we then process sibling open enrollments. And you'll also see for number 5 that letters are then sent out correspondingly, letting families know that, of course, the lottery rankings have been conducted, and they are permanent, but it's also a tentative approval based on enrollment, so that if indeed homeschooled students enroll at the school and there is no longer space available, they would have to return to their home school. And then the process continues as well for the open enrollment for all students in the district, which begins the lottery in the end of April. The general open enrollment is also processed at staffing meetings May through August, as well as the letters being sent out as well. I think it's important to note in the letter that this is a tentative approval. So this is not a definitive approval. It is based on enrollment. So if you are approved to attend a school and then for some reason we get a large number of homeschool students that enroll and we no longer have space, you would be asked to return to your home school. However, also in the second paragraph, you'll note that this placement is permanent. It's permanent through 5th grade for families that have been approved on the open enrollment process. We also have not only intra but inter-district transfers, and you'll see later in the presentation the total numbers. These are students that are coming over the hill to attend school in our district. And of course, we've had the conversation in closed session with regards to being a revenue limit, basic aid district, and what the financial impact would be when we were revenue limit, money was coming in, as opposed to being a basic aid district where you do not receive the big allotment. You do receive some funding, but not quite as much. This is our class configurations for 14-15, and these are the classes that we began with this school year. And you can see for El Granada, the rollout, there are some combination classes listed accordingly, K1, 1, 2, 4, 5. And you can see those are spread out throughout the entire elementary school level. This is really an interesting slide, and because of the LCAP and rules related to LCFF, we have to be very sensitive not to exceed an average of 24 students. And although the contract for CUTA states that you can go to 24, you may add an additional student and go to 25 with a conference with the teacher, we're really being very aware of the numbers that are beyond 25, because we do not want to get in a situation where we exceed the 24 to 1 class average, because I believe that there is a very severe penalty, not just for the site, but for the entire district, of losing, I think, in excess of $1 million. I think it's like $1.2 million loss. So we're very mindful looking at class size. For example, currently at Kings Mountain, we have a 2-3 class at 25, but our K1 class is at 22. So it's okay in that capacity to go above as long as you maintain that average. This is a really interesting slide, and we have one for each elementary school in the district. And you can really see this is El Granada. 92% of the students currently attending El Granada, that is their home school, 92%. And you can see that from the breakout, 15, and I'm all the way to the right, far right, 15 students have a home school of Farallon View, 24 students have a home school of Hatch, but the remainder of the students at El Granada, 92%, that is their home school.
Can I ask a question
Sure.
at this point, John? When the application for an inter-district transfer is being made, do they need to supply a reason? For example, El Granada is their home school, but 15 students are attending El Granada, but their home school is Farallon View. Did they have to give a reason why, or no?
There is on the application process an opportunity for a student, and I don't know if the application was included in the board packet or not, but that importantly needs to go through the process. And we actually added, I think 3 years ago, a principal signature. So the opportunity for the principal to speak with the parents, speak with the student to say, hey, you know, why are you interested in leaving the school? What's the reason? Is there something we can do to fix or mediate so that you could actually stay at your home school? But most of the parents, in my conversations with them, sometimes it's related to transportation, sometimes it's related to childcare.
Okay, so
but
there
the
is
reason,
some information about
information,
that. Okay.
information
Okay,
is
that's what I
provided, as
wanted.
well as on, it's a good question, and also on the inter districts as well,
Okay.
with regards to why the family would want to come into our district. For Farallon View Elementary School, as noted, 90% of the students attending Farallon View are within the Farallon View attendance area. We have 28 students from El Granada, 8 from Hatch attending Farallon View Elementary School. And then moving on to Kings Mountain. Kings Mountain was really interesting. I used to always tell people that 60% of the families live on the coast, 40% live on the mountain, but it's actually much smaller. 30%, only 30% of the students that are attending Kings Mountain actually live on the mountain, and 70% of the students are actually coming from different sites. We have 21 from El Granada, 18 from Hatch that are placed at Kings Mountain via the open enrollment process. And then finally, we have Hatch Elementary School, our largest elementary school, 655 students. 91% of the students that attend Hatch reside within the Hatch attendance area. 34 students from Fairlawn View, 25 from El Granada are attending Hatch Elementary School on an intra-district open enrollment. And I think this is really an interesting slide as well with regards to giving the total number of students that are leaving a school and also coming into a school. So you'll see, like from El Granada, there are 39 students coming from other schools in. There's 74 students coming out. At Fairlawn View, 36 in, 49 out. At Hatch, our largest school, and always a school that we're closely monitoring because of the large enrollment, we have 59 out coming in and 50 out, which I was kind of interested in looking at that number almost in an equal capacity. And Kings Mountain, of course, 39 students that are transferring in. Most of our transfers in at Kings Mountain are at the kindergarten level. We just approved a transfer last week for a family that's been waiting to come to Kings Mountain into our second grade class. They were notified on a Friday and they started on a Monday. Yes, Mike?
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead and finish it, and I have a question.
Oh, I was just going to point out the inter-district transfer attendance as well. We do have 58 district-wide students that have requested transfers outside of the district. And then coming in to our district as well, you can see the reported El Granada, Fairlawn View, Hatch, Kings Mountain, Cunha, and the high school numbers as well. Those are the outside the district.
So as Madam President asked earlier regarding to the reasons why, at El Granada, of those 74, how many would you say or could you say were associated with wanting to attend the immersion program?
These are actually not including immersion numbers, and actually a point that I'm remiss not to mention, kindergarten immersion families actually register directly at Hatch. They do not register at their home school. They report directly. So these are numbers that report and reflect the English-only program.
Thank you.
John, could you go back one
Sure.
second, please? So the total enrollment at Hatch is 655 students, and of all those transfers, that does not, that's English-only students?
No, those numbers, the specific, the transfers. So the El Granada, the Fairlawn View, the El Granada numbers are the English only.
Say that from the beginning again. Let me do
It
it,
does not include
do it
None of them
simply
are
so I
immersion.
can
It does
understand.
not include the immersion.
None of them are.
Does not include immersion?
Correct.
Okay.
Right. And really, even though the immersion is a district-wide program,
Yes.
historically in the district, they have registered directly at Hatch for the kindergarten program. We don't have a lot of students, and probably Dr. Shuck could help me out more, of a lot of immersion students that request transfers inter or intra beyond kindergarten. There's probably just a handful of students that start.
So if you live in the Fairlawn View homeschool area, you don't have to request an intra-district transfer to go to the immersion program?
No.
So do we keep any records of
No.
that, though?
That is actually processed through the main office at Hatch Elementary School. We've talked about that possibly, being transferred and being processed. The Hatch site processes the lottery for the immersion program as well.
So I'm sorry, Trina, was that looked at the task force last year in terms of how many come from those areas that's separate from this?
We do know which their home school is.
You do? Okay.
So
Did
we
we
do-
look at those on the-
Yeah, why wouldn't you keep track of that?
I
I'm just
don't
curious.
recall that we specifically did.
It's just a mailing address.
We could certainly bring that information back to the board, but I guess with regards to just knowing that the students that are being processed on intra, they're not technically on open enrollment through the process of the district. We have had students that have,
Isn't it, John?
well, it's not, technically it's correct because it's not their home school, so they are coming from another side. We could present that, in a data capacity as well. We do have that numbers, as Ann said, but specifically to the open enrollment, so they would not be included. Just continuing the practice of the district, not to say that that's the right practice per se, but they're not technically on open enrollment. We've gotten to situations where a student has exited the immersion program. Where do they go? Do they go into the English-only program at Hatch, or do they go back to their home school?
And the answer is?
They go back to their home school. But also then, if they go back to their home school, they would have access to the intra-district process, so they could request a process then to go to the English-only component of the Hatch, dependent on space availability. But there could be students perhaps waiting in a queue to go into an English-only third grade class. There could be students waiting because it was full at point. Some students have left, so they wouldn't necessarily have priority to jump in the line, so to speak, because there may be a wait list for that particular grade level.
So John, just another question while we're on this topic.
Mhm.
Is there a way to find out how many homeschool Fairlawn View children are enrolled in the immersion program at Hatch, and El Granada Homeschool and Hatch Homeschool?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Somebody knows that.
Somebody
Yeah,
knows that,
we
but
do.
that's not included in this particular
Well, again,
slide.
I think the request was to look at enrollment based on the intra-district, and again, those students are not considered to be on an intra-district transfer because they registered directly at
Right,
Hatch.
yeah. I
But-
didn't- But
I don't see the.
because it's a magnet program of the school district, so it isn't homeschool versus not homeschool. It's who is in the lottery that gets accepted into the program that becomes their school.
Right,
But
but
there's
this,
no priority for Hatch enrollment area either.
Correct.
Right. So it's a lottery for everyone, not just.
sure,
Yeah.
but still, this data is showing us where the kids lived and what school they are attending now. But it's incomplete because it doesn't show.
I was asked to present the information related to the students that are enrolled and are participating in the
Yeah,
intra-district.
Thanks, you've
Yeah,
explained
that,
that.
yeah.
So
we get
that's
that,
just
yeah,
what I was
yeah.
asked to present. We can certainly gather that data for you.
I would like to see it, yes. Thank you.
Okay. So that basically concludes the presentation with regards to giving an idea over enrollment and intra and intra-districts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
That was very interesting.
Yes.
Oh, and I'm so sorry to be inappropriate, but I would like to give a thanks to, and thank you, Crystal, for reminding me, to Rosie Acosta, who is the administrative assistant in the Pupil Services Department. Wearing a lot of different hats, she spent a lot of time in a lot of different areas, and I was able to just verbally share with her the request that I had received from Dr. Warwick, and within a day or two, she was able to put this presentation together. And really a kudos to Rosie on a variety of different levels, a former community liaison at Fairlawn View, moving up, and it's really a skill set that we really encourage a lot of our classified employees to be able to do. The typing requirement is still very important, but the skill set to actually put together a presentation like this is just admirable. And she's one of our many, many shining stars in our district from our CSCA organization. I'd like to recognize her for her good work. That's great.
So
Do
she-
give her our thanks.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and some flowers as well.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
roses though, but I will give her flowers.
Tony, would this be a good time to have a discussion about this, that we can,
Absolutely. It's on the agenda. The board
Yeah,
has
yeah.
this information, and if there are any
I'd like
questions.
to begin the conversation about school enrollments, as Michael just whispered to me. Could you give those numbers again? There's a big imbalance with our Fairlawn View, El Granada, and Hatch numbers. And the overcrowding at Hatch is, I'd like to see us investigate ways to maybe begin decreasing that overcrowding. I'm not exactly sure of possibilities, but the use of space, and I bet Mr. Ward could attest to that, is probably at a capacity that gives very little, and I think that you mentioned this in your report, John, that there's very little flexibility in bringing in other things and having classroom space. And, maybe even safety could be an issue with, how many students it had? 600, 650?
655.
Yeah, so, Tony, is there a way that you could begin a discussion with the board about how to look at addressing some of this?
Well, the enrollment is a factor that's pretty simple to get your hands around, but very complicated to
As we learned
to
from John's
address.
presentation, yeah.
Yes. So I apologize to John and the board. I did not understand that nuance myself. I learned something tonight that immersion students coming from outside of the Hatch attendance area are not considered interdistrict, and do not go through that process. So my apologies to the board too for not having that information. Had I known that, I would have been more specific. So anyways,
Well,
we
but
all
it's a
learn.
good thing to clarify,
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and we'll get that information to the governing board sooner than later so that we can help inform this conversation as well. But, you know, the district has done several things that has had a direct impact on the enrollment at all the elementary schools and Hatch as well. Now, one of those was to, you know, assign students in certain neighborhoods, Moonridge, Main Street, and Highway 92 to other schools to help mitigate the enrollment size, as well as to balance ethnicity as well. But that's certainly, I mean, there are approximately 120 to 130 students from Moonridge. There are an additional 70 students from Main Street, Highway 92 that are going to El Granada. So there's you know, of around 200 students that geographically, if you drew a circle, are closer to Hatch than they are to the schools that they're attending.
And that number would not be indicated in that graph because their home school is considered Fairlawn View, but
That's
yet
correct.
they're at the southernmost part of town
Correct.
and are bused to the northernmost part, so.
Right. So, yeah.
Maybe it would be interesting to put this on a future agenda item as a discussion item with a little bit more history and explanation. Maybe
All right.
looking at what the different regions are, when they were occurred, you know, just to kind of have a little bit more information about this.
Sure.
Because it would just give us a little bit more to discuss, and maybe if there's ideas for other, I don't know, you know, then we could decide if there's something that we need to explore in terms of changing something or not, but just there would just be a little bit more information on it, and then it would be a discussion item for us to move forward.
It's a great suggestion.
Okay, that's a great, yeah.
And I'm sorry
Rob,
to
what do you
interject.
think?
I'm sorry.
You good?
That's right.
I just
Michael?
wanted to be clear on the request. I just want to make sure. Can you restate that, Freya?
Well, it's just to have a discussion item at a future board meeting that would look at these numbers, but also look at maybe a map of the different areas where I don't even know specifically where the boundaries are, but also include the information about the busing and how many students from different communities, the histories of when those started. If there's any rationale as to why or how, that would be interesting as well. Maybe some of the immersion numbers as well, so we understand that. How much is that contributing to the overcrowding at Hatch? Just to have a larger sense of the situation, and then if it's a discussion item, we could then direct further reports or issues or task force or something. So we just might need a little bit more information before. So that was what I was thinking. I don't know. Answer.
Doable?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We'll return in March with that information.
Okay.
Great.
All right, any other comments?
No, those are some
All right.
striking numbers, John. I mean, it's very interesting, and I appreciate that chance to get a look at this. And clearly, we'd like a little more definition, as you understand it. It does deserve a good, solid look, especially as we go ahead with our strategic planning. It's just
Strategic planning and also Measure S
yes, indeed.
and models and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So
another
that's-
vital thing is what is,
Right.
yeah.
Population issues.
Yeah.
Mhm.
To get data from it.
And tell Rosie it's Kirk's fault that she's going to have to do new data.
I'll bring her flowers.
Beautiful report next.
She actually really enjoys the work. You know, she
Great.
is actually a parent in the
That's it. We just
district.
wanted to give her some things to enjoy.
As well, she definitely does. Compared to the other work in the people services, she actually does enjoy the work. And again, I apologize for not having that data.
I think that
ready.
we've all learned a little bit, yeah, so we'll put it on the March agenda.
Yes.
All right, very good. Thank you for bringing that up and pointing us in that direction. So, all right, we are now to item 11D, which is high school textbook.
I'm going to invite Mr. James Barnes up to the podium. Last month, he presented information on a proposed course, which is also in here this evening for approval, for an AP Human Geography class, and he's going to explain about a textbook that he would like to propose to accompany that course.
All right. Thank you. I'm here for my monthly appearance.
You are, yes.
Regular now. So last month I presented to you the AP Human Geography course, and this month I'm presenting to you the textbook for information, the Cultural Landscape. This is the textbook that I propose we adopt to use with the course. This is probably the most popular and standard textbook used. There's several others, and you can see I've reviewed them and so on in the proposed textbook material that you have. I really like this one. There's stuff in here. Well, let me look at just look at the table of contents on it. We're talking about an advanced human geography course. So it's less, I mean, it involves all the, where are all the countries in the world, but it's in-depth and more to do with human culture and society. So if you look through the contents of it, population and health, migration, folk and popular culture, languages, religions, ethnicities, political geography, development, food and agriculture, industry, manufacturing, services and settlement, and urban patterns. I mean, so it's quite comprehensive in dealing with different ways of living around the world and how people interact with their environment. Particularly, I'm a big fan of understanding about language families, language history. There's a whole very extensive chapter on the origins of languages, language families, the relation of languages to each other, which, I just, when I first saw this and how extensive and well presented it was, I was very, very excited. So I'm hoping that this will be a good textbook for the class, and so I'm hoping you guys will approve it. So there you go. Any questions?
So this was the older of there was an alternative text that this is published in 2011, and there was another one published in 2013. I know it's history, but you just liked it? That's what I was wondering, the newer book?
This is the one that struck me as the better textbook.
Okay, so you had, the other one's a 2014 publication date, but that you just preferred it?
Yeah.
Okay.
But this course won't be offered to all ninth graders at the high school, will it?
Correct. This is, we're starting with a pilot program, one section.
Mm-hmm.
And so this, we have a new textbook that we adopted last year for our regular geography course, brand new textbook that we're using this year for the first time with the regular course. And this would simply, one section of geography would be this AP Human Geography, and we'd use this textbook.
So it's replacing?
It's replacing the World Geography textbook for that one section that wouldn't be Freshman Studies, World Studies, would be AP Human Geography instead.
And I noticed that the students will be referred by their CUNY counselors as eighth graders?
Correct. The CUNY counselors, I've been working with Ms. Beridica to work out a program of bringing this opportunity down to not just CUNY, but other private schools in the area who are likely to be sending kids to the high school, to make sure that everybody's aware of the opportunity and get people signed on to it. And we may have more kids signing on than can go into the course this first year, mm-hmm. and being able to make sure that we choose properly from all the different schools.
Mm-hmm.
One other question, maybe Elizabeth answer. How do you pick the number 40 for the number of books?
40? Well, if you're going to have a class of 35, that gives you an opportunity to have a couple extra books. And preferably, you'd like to have a set of textbooks for the class and one to go home with all the kids. But since I was asking for private funding from the Half Moon Bay High School Foundation for this, I chose to ask them for just to get us the first set of books.
And this title's available as a soft copy too, as an e-book?
Yes, it is.
And is it expected that might be useful? Will some kids want to do that rather than carry 30 pounds or not 30 pounds?
That's possible. It's at the moment it's difficult because not all kids, even kids going into AP classes, really have good and useful e-reader access to that kind of thing. So that day may come that everybody's carrying around an easy tablet to use, but paper books are still kind of unnecessary for this point.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes.
Thank you.
Yeah, just discussion. Mm-hmm. All right, leads us to item number 12, communications. Any board member have something to say? Nothing to share, Mr. Papalardo? Kirk?
I don't have anything to say.
Brad?
Yeah, I just want to say that I continued my visits to school sites and went to Kings Mountain, which was really wonderful, and spent a couple hours up there, both in the lunchroom and seeing some of the classes and meeting with Diane and some of the other teachers. I really enjoy getting to each of the school sites, and it's really wonderful to be up there, especially when Kings Mountain is honored. And I also followed through. Kings Mountain is my site for which one of the ones we're representing, and I did talk to them about attending a PTO meeting and a site council meeting, so I just wanted to bring that up as a reminder that we talked about doing that. And we talked about doing that, each of us doing that at one of the schools where we're the site person, but I thought I'd mention that. I also got to go out to Pillarcitos, and this time got to go out to the farm, and it was wonderful. Thank you, Raj. There he is. Thank you. It was a wonderful trip out there. It was really great to see the kids out there on the farm. It was a snack day, which was really delicious, and they were eating black beans that had been grown the spring before, had been harvested and threshed in the fall with these same group of kids. They that day picked hot chili peppers and made hot sauce to put on their quesadillas with their black beans, and a kale salad that they picked the kale from and then made it in the kitchen there. And it was really great to see these kids out there and blossoming, and the collaborative with the farm and the folks out there that can work with them as well. Just one more added community resource to help that great school resource that we have. I'm looking forward to going again and maybe seeing the marketing group in action, because there's lots of different facets to it. I talked to the science teacher about how they then connect the stuff they learn at the farm with their science curriculum back at Pillarcitos. That's really exciting. And I'm planning on trying to continue my visits to school sites so I can do them all again this spring. So I think that's all.
Thank you. Michael?
You know, last night, and I apologize, John, for putting you on the spot here in a minute, but last night I attended a meeting, and it was in response to the climate survey results. John hosted and brought forward a PowerPoint presentation, and then we had an opportunity as a group, about 12 of us or so, to reflect on the data. And there were some, I think, fairly startling, I mean, at times, and you know, information about things typically percentage of drug use, weapons on campus, but then there were some other elements too that were equally curious and interesting. And John, could you tell us the names of everyone that was there in the meeting? Because they did enough. I thought it was really a great group of people.
Definitely, and actually, I don't know if James is still.
He just left.
But James Barnes actually facilitated that, and as you recall, James presented the results of the California Healthy School Survey to the governing board at a previous meeting, and there were definitely some areas that were eye-opening.
Some changes from 2010 to 2014 that are very notable.
And specifically with regards to weapons on campus, safety issues, mental health issues. There were some startling slides there with the number and percentages of students at the 7th, 9th, and 11th grade level that were contemplating suicide. That was a discussion item last night. James kind of did a summary presentation, if you will. We had representing the high school principal, Campana was there, assistant principal Albert Strong. We also had 2 of our 3 counselors there, Sayuri, Baritica, and Courtney Coburn was present as well. 2 of our counselors. Javier Gutierrez, the assistant principal from Cunha, was present. Our district nurse, Greg Reagan, was also present at the meeting.
Ron
was present as well. So not necessarily a large crowd, but a crowd of people that were very interested in the topic, and really with the focus of here's the data, here's the analysis of the data, what interventions should we as a district potentially implement to address some of the noted concerns. So it was well facilitated by James, and we as a collective group came up with a variety of different areas that we may actually further pursue and actually at some point bring back to the governing board, specifically focusing on mental health issues. And Sayuri, the head counselor at Half Moon Bay High School, did an informal survey amongst the 3 counselors at the high school, and she reported out I think over 100 incidents this year involving students that have been hospitalized, that have been involved in cutting, involved in serious mental health issues that have warranted interventions, including hospitalization. So the mental health focus was pretty clearly heard, talking about some programs to implement to create a sense of community up at the high school as well. The peer helping program that I was involved with at Mills High School as an assistant principal for curriculum and instruction was mentioned. The other program is actually linked. What was the name of the other program? I apologize for that.
LinkedIn.
That was a very interesting conversation around that too, which is one of the things I wanted to bring to the board about the connectiveness, how kids responded feeling connected to the school, feeling connected to the school community. And there was a big change in our Latino group from 2010 to 2014, a remarkable difference in a decrease in their connectivity. And so we talked about and this was what was great about this brain trust that was in this group, because we had all these folks that had worked in other districts and had seen programs that worked to draw kids more into becoming connected to schools. And so there were these programs that were discussed with experience, and I encouraged this group to do some small bets, to pick one or two of those programs with directly targeting this particular issue of connectivity with the schools and bringing it to the board for consideration.
And there was also the idea, and it's probably more common at the middle school level, of actually having a homeroom period where students are actually, before first period, you're carving out time, instructional minutes, to create a 7 to 10 minute homeroom period. Not necessarily students that they have as a teacher, but a class where interchange on a personal level takes place. There's a check-in, a mental health check-in, and there's an opportunity for students to potentially bond with the teacher that they would not normally see through the course of their instructional day.
Is 10 minutes enough?
Perhaps not, but on a daily basis,
Yeah.
10 times 5, but creating that sense of belonging.
Sure.
And I think, interestingly, even as a former high school English teacher and high school administrator, middle school principal, having that opportunity to have that opportunity on a daily basis is significant. And we're talking a lot about 10th graders. All students are at risk, but specifically 10th grade. And it was interesting discussion from a variety of different, why 10th grade? And 10th grade is definitively, based on the input from the people attending the meeting, that's a focus area. And perhaps that might be an area to potentially pilot a program. I know that many districts right now have created positions not only to monitor the policies related to mental health, but also to coordinate in a much larger capacity a wellness coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first heard the title, like a wellness coordinator, and then as we began to talk about it, Sayuri, I think, was actually going, that's our wellness center in the library that's currently being used as an opportunity where we have our meetings with students about alternatives to suspension. That's the wellness center. We need a wellness coordinator. And perhaps working with our nurse, perhaps focusing on some of the physical wellness needs, we could have potentially even a part-time person in some capacity to kind of focus more on connecting resources to address some of the mental health issues, not just for our students, but I know it's been talked about as well, just for our staff as well. And I think next year, on that Wednesday, that first day back, we're looking at the opportunity to provide professional development for our secondary staff. Not the Common Core is not important, but the balancing as well, to make sure that they are well, so that they can in turn provide that environment for our students as well.
And you may recall my conversation on occasion about case management, having a point person within our district to work in unison with mental health and resources, and to build a continuity, so when we have students that enter into those challenges in their lives, and those families that enter into those challenges in their lives, when they move, let's say in an interdistrict transfer, or they move into immersion, or they move from the elementary to the middle school, that there's a continuity of service and awareness that travels with them, and a sensitivity maybe in the placement in their classes with the right kinds of teachers that can help balance them, so they can transition properly. I'm very empowered by the meeting. I was very impressed by everyone that was involved there.
And Sayuri, our head counselor, was already, I think, a very early 5:30 a.m. email to me about the opportunity to bring counseling interns into our secondary level from East Bay. She's already contacted me about that opportunity. I'm really, really fortunate with the support of Dr. Rourke to actually have a counselor, therapist in place at Calacitos High School this year as well, Jane Kinsley, and talk about a significant impact. And I think Raj would speak highly with regards to the impact, a positive impact, not just to the culture of the school, but to address some very severe issues that are academically impacting, but also life impacting for the students at Calacitos. But at the elementary level, often forgotten, really the counselor at the elementary school can be almost any adult on campus, and oftentimes the principal in that capacity. So I think even over at Hatch, sounds like I'm going to get into another board report here, but Star Vista has actually recently come to Hatch Elementary School to provide mental health services as well recently, expanding. And they've been in the district before, but that's really been well received, and kudos to Elisa Fireman and to Principal Ward for actually making that happen. So we're looking district-wide, but also county-wide, as part of the Big 5 school safety plans that Tony, Dr. Rourke, and I have been involved with. A big component is really doing an assessment and providing interventions for mental health. Some of the students that have been involved in shootings and severe, tragedies at the high school, it was a result of mental health issues. So a big wave that's forthcoming. They're interested in starting a collaborative on the coast where we can actually not just network mental health resources on the coast, which are not plentiful compared to being over the hill and being in Millbrae and having the resources to the north and the south, where students can actually, and families can actually take public transportation and actually arrive at a facility. We are so geographically isolated, it's a challenge. So that a collaborative will be forthcoming as well, and our counselors, admin, including myself, will be participants on that committee as well. So it's a big wave of long-awaited resources for our students and families.
It sounds like an area that's perfect to target for funding, too, because of our isolation. I mean, there's a reason why we need to have that concentrated on the coast and have to be an opportunity to look at grants and what specifically targeting that. Very nice.
As part of my board report, I couldn't ask for a better segue. Thank you, Michael, and thank you, John, because I wanted to share that, courtesy of the district, I went to a San Mateo School Boards Association presentation, and I invited the two counselors from Cunha School, the delightful Janice Lee and Gretchen Lindgren, and the three of us were excited what we heard, and it fits in beautifully with this. The theme of the presentation was student stress and the services for mental health that are available in our county. And with Dr. Rourke's support, I'm going to be bugging the principal at the high school and the principal at Cunha to become more involved in the San Mateo County Youth Advisory Task Force, and hopefully get a high school student on that task force. It's an application process, and not everybody who applies gets on, but Ron and Jarrett, look for me to be bugging you. And your two counselors are quite wonderful, Mr. Dooley. They were excited to bring back some mental health resources to your site, and hopefully that they would be able to implement some of those. But it's just perfect that you brought that up. So I'd also like to share that as the Fairlawn View board representative, I've been hanging out with Joy at Fairlawn View, and over the past 2 weeks with Joy's support, I shadowed 4 CSEA members at work. I shadowed 2 health aides, a relatively new position in our district, and 2 paraprofessionals. And as they went about their jobs, I am truly impressed with the quality of commitment and caring that these employees give to our students, and I'm impressed with their calmness. They are dealing with a group of at-risk and medically fragile students, and they're doing a superb job for CSA members at Fairlawn View. So thank you, Joy, for setting that up. And lastly, I'd just like to let the board know that Freya and I will be hosting our 3rd Coffee and Conversation with PTO Leadership on March 6th, and everybody's coming, so we're pleased about that.
Great.
Freya will be updating them.
What am I doing on March 6th?
No, it's a,
Okay.
come for coffee.
I will.
Anyway. And Dr. Rorick?
Good evening. I have 3 items to report this evening. The first is, we'll start with the not so great news, and that we have just found out that our application for Measure A funds to support the Cunha Bus pilot program was not successful. However, Supervisor Horsley has indicated that he would like to work with us to direct other funding from Connect the Coast Side effort to assist us expand transportation services. I'm, as a member of that committee that's working on this project, Connect the Coast Side, I can let you know that the report that will eventually be published will include that the expansion of school transportation will be one of the most effective strategies in reducing traffic congestion during peak hours. However, budgeting decisions for Connect the Coast Side efforts will not begin until about this time next year, and actual funding won't flow until the 16-17 school year. So in terms of having an additional funding source to support the pilot for next year, that does not seem viable at this point. The Transportation Committee will reconvene on Tuesday, February 24th, and then I would intend to, in consultation with President Livingston, add a discussion item on the March 12th agenda so the board can provide direction to staff in terms of how to proceed with the pilot program for next year. So turning to better news, yesterday the district completed its process to select a lease-back builder for our 3 upcoming projects, to include the new gym at Cunha, the new campus for Pillar Cedos, and the modernization and new construction for Hatch Elementary School. Selected was a Santa Clara company, Block Construction. They have extensive school construction experience throughout the Bay Area and in San Mateo County, with specifically with lease-back delivery. And they have also worked on many projects with our architect, WLC. Block demonstrated to us through the process that they have a really deep commitment to ensuring that local subcontractor, suppliers, and labor will be involved in our projects. So we're now in the process of contract negotiations for pre-construction services for those 3 projects. However, Block and WLC are already collaborating together to ensure that we complete the highest quality facilities within budget and established time schedule. So really happy. It's not quite formal until the board acts upon a contract, but we have our complete facility team in place for Measure S. And finally, a little bit of update on our LCAP progress. Schools are right now in the process of conducting site-based meetings in order to share with our stakeholders our current LCAP goals and action steps. We're asking our principals to lead conversations that will determine stakeholder input on 2 important questions. And the first is, are these the right goals to be focusing on? And if so, are these the right action steps to be taken to address these goals? Very soon we will be receiving input from the principals based on their outreach, which we will incorporate into our revised LCAP, which will be the 2015-16 LCAP, and 3 years out from there. And then we will hold a number of district-wide stakeholder meetings in March to gather input on what our proposed revisions are to the LCAP. The meetings that we have planned include meeting with the DLAC on March 2nd, and then on March 19th we will hold both a meeting with our employee associations, and then in the evening a meeting for the broad community. And then we'll bring a working draft of the new LCAP to the May 14th governing board meeting for discussion. We'll bring a final draft of the document to the June 4th board meeting and conduct the required public hearing. And then the document will return to the June 18th meeting for board adoption, along with our budget for 15-16. Thank you.
Tony, can I
Yes.
ask, so block construction has a lot of experience with the, not just stick build, but with the modular?
Absolutely, yeah. They've worked with the modular company extensively that we've worked with. We were really impressed by the resources that they bring. You know, we are a lean district, and they have in-house experts in all of the sub-trades, so that when they are estimating and they are looking at plans, they have direct specialists to ensure that that the design is the most efficient, the most cost-effective, and that we're using the most appropriate materials, both in terms of our coast-side environment and in terms of the possibility to save dollars.
Wonderful. Thanks.
All right, thank you. It brings us to the consent agenda, consent items. I'm going to ask for a motion. John, do we need to have anything on this? No? I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Second? Any discussion?
Is the,
Oh, without discussion.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, is the approval, accept donation from Cabrillo Unified School District within this?
Yes.
So I have a question about the staff and student recognition fund. This is the first time I've seen a staff and student recognition fund. What, that's kind of a cool fund, right? I mean, that's the kind of fund I'd like to donate to periodically. And I'm just wondering, what does that fund do with the monies that are donated? Is that for plaques and certificates of recommendation?
Is that at the high school?
It seems to be for the high school, so.
Do you know what the fund is for?
Yes.
Can you come up and share with us at the mic?
So the fund is basically, it addresses every quarter we have an Outstanding Cougar Award. And so basically every staff member nominates a student, and then we put together a lunch, a banquet, and certificates for them at a lunch, and they are invited. We try to pick students from different backgrounds and needs, and not just the students that have all A's, but we look at a variety of ways to nominate students. They come, we have a little write-up that they fill out. The person who nominated them presents them, and then they get an award, and then they have a lunch that's just for the students. Sometimes there's leftover for the person who nominated them, but we set those up, and we try to do it quarterly, and then and that's pretty much, you know, there's other recognitions that we'll do occasionally when that money's there for students who do something outstanding in the community or get recognized, or we hear about it. So we make special awards, and we'll go to the class and do presentations, and that's pretty much it.
Is it a new program?
It was there before me, so I think it's been there for a couple of years.
Your Naviance program, it's a piece of the Naviance recognition program.
So is it just for students, or is it also for staff member recognition?
It's for staff as well, and so basically, you know, it's giving them recognition for something they've done that's exemplary, and we usually will honor them at a faculty meeting and, you know, present them with something. Sometimes it's a coupon towards buying supplies at or we give them little things to recognize in other ways to help them out in class, supplies, materials. So,
great.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda items. All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. opposed? Hearing none, passes 5-0. And we move on to action items. Approve proposed courses for Half Moon Bay High School. Dr. Shutt?
Last month, we brought 3 courses proposed by the high school, the Advanced Placement Human Geography class that you heard Mr. Barnes speak about previously, and then 2 English courses with specially designed academic instruction in English to support English learners. So tonight, we're asking for the board to approve these 3 courses of study.
All right, is there a motion to approve?
So moved. I second that.
Second. All right, is there a discussion?
Yes. I think it's high time we move ahead on this. This is great.
High time we move ahead on this.
Yeah, I mean,
All
if
right.
you read these courses, they sound phenomenal. I'd like to take one of them.
All right, I have a keen interest in hearing how these courses are doing. So maybe in August or September, there might be an opportunity to hear student enrollment, how's it going, what's the, just because they are new courses and it will affect the students. So I'd really appreciate that. And as always, new courses require professional development, and I see that there's a paid position, I mean, that they're going to be taken care of, right?
And I think that would be a good time also to report back on other changes that will be impacting the program for our English learners at the schools.
Yeah. Thank you, yes. Okay, all right. So, did I ask for a motion already? Yes. All right, so it's been moved and seconded to approve the proposed courses for Half Moon Bay High School. All in favor, respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Passes 5-0. All right, we're going to cast district ballot for Subregion 5-B representatives to the California School Boards Association Delegate Assembly. Dr. Rorick?
Yes, this is the board's annual opportunity to engage with the California School Board's governance model to be able to vote for Subregion 5B, which is our region, the delegates that the governing board would like to move forward. There are 4 names for 3 vacancies. The candidates include Davina Dropkins, a trustee in Burlingame. There's Carrie Dubois from Sequoia High School District. She is an incumbent. Amy Koo is a trustee in the Belmont Redwood Shores School District. And Kevin Martinez from San Bruno Park Elementary School District. He is also an incumbent. So Patty has the official ballot. It's dark red, so it can't be copied. This is an opportunity for the board to move forward 3 of the potential candidates forward in the process.
All right, so is there a motion to approve?
I think we need to.
Oh, we need to have discussion?
We need to have some nominations.
All right, nominations.
Okay, you're the CSBA rep for this area. Have you had any interactions with some of the existing ones? Do you have any sense
Yes,
who
thank
would-
you for asking. Yes,
who
I
would play the
have.
best
I
role
have.
in
Carrie Dubois, an incumbent, as well as Kevin Martinez, an incumbent, are both excellent. They're at the San Mateo County School Board Association meetings. They're very active, they're very involved, and very knowledgeable, and still have, after all the years that they've been serving, high level of enthusiasm and eagerness to see things move forward in our county. So I could give a recommendation for those 2. The other 2 names I'm not familiar with.
So maybe nominate those 2. Does anybody else have another nomination for either of the 2?
I looked through the background. I really couldn't differentiate a reason to include or exclude the others, so it would be random for me.
Well, they're both representing elementary school districts, so that puts them
San
even.
Bruno Park is unified, is that what it is?
No, that's Kevin.
No.
This would be Amy Koo and Davina Drabkin.
Yeah, but so.
They're both elementary K-8 districts, Burlingame and San Bruno Park. Oh, excuse me,
I thought they
Belmont
both-
Redwood Shores.
I thought they both seemed very qualified. For some reason, the Amy Koo woman just stood out to me a little bit more in her organization and her statement, but not for any particular reason, so just throw that out there, but I'm open to discussion about
let's go with that.
All right, so the three names to be nominated are Carrie Dubois, Amy Coe, and Kevin Martinez.
Right.
All right, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? It has been moved and seconded that we support Carrie Dubois, Amy Coe, and Kevin Martinez as delegate assembly for subregion 5-B. All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Carries 5-0.
That's not a Valentine's Day vow.
Moves us to item 15, discussion items. We've done the first reading of the new textbook, so this is to discuss the progress of the development of the new strategic plan. Dr. Rourke?
Yes, and as has been noted previously, both trustees Freya McCammett and Kate Livingston are active members of the strategic planning steering committee, as well as senior management members, Crystal Leach, John Corey, Elizabeth Shuck, and every principal as well are all well versed in the work of the strategic plan steering committee. I'm very pleased to report that the work of the committee is nearly completed. We held what we believe will be our final meeting earlier this week, and we've put together two matrices for the two areas, professionalism and communication. There's some final wordsmithing that needs to be done by our excellent consulting team of Kevin and Marco Chavez and Kevin Woolridge from the County Office of Education. And I will have a timeline for that by the end of next week in terms of when those documents will be ready. We were sort of hoping maybe we could squeeze in a study session in the end of February, but that's a little too aggressive for their timeline, clearly. But the work has been energizing, and we had a great process. What we really did was we looked at each other's and we critiqued the other groups. So I've been working on the communication theme, as has Freya, and for some reason all three of you isolated to professionalism along with President Livingston. Principals were in different categories, as well as were community members, and I see Jennifer Lockhart's here. She's on the communication team as well as a community member, and teachers and CSEA members as well. And it was tremendous. I mean, we've been working as separate entities for several meetings now. And I joked to Kevin, who facilitated the work of the professionalism committee, but then came over and explained their work to us, and as we went through it very detailed, that we always were under the impression you guys were the slackers, and you guys produce some high quality stuff.
I brought
high
them
quality
tonight.
stuff.
Check out the number of pages
Yeah.
from professionalism
Yeah.
and communications. They did a good job. These are the pieces of paper that we came up with.
Yes.
5 meetings worth. So
Absolutely. And so anyways, our plan is to schedule with the governing board, once we have the documents ready, a study session so we can devote specific time, not at the end of a regular board meeting when the energy may wane, but a specific opportunity to dig deep into the document, make recommendations. If there's any changes that need to be made, the committees are happy to re-engage, hopefully electronically. And before turning it over for anyone else's comments, I just want to make sure to acknowledge Patty for her organization of all these meetings and making sure that we were fed and kept with warm beverage and these chilly nights and everything else. So thank you very much, Patty, for your organization.
I had to learn how to make coffee.
Patty and I are a great team. Neither one of us drink coffee. never make coffee, don't know how to make coffee, and we're trying to make coffee, the first one together. Does that look about right? I'll put some more in.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
It was, well, from all reports, it was horrible, but Patty learned to make coffee and made great coffee.
I've got it down.
You know, the art of communication is to be able to say it in a few words.
Oh.
So this is amazing. It's
Oh.
really amazing.
Short and sweet.
Yeah, you got it. You guys are stars. Thank you for your efforts.
Yeah, I just
All of
want
it.
to just reiterate that it'll be exciting to bring it to the board and have the special study session, and hopefully some members of the task force will come as well to be a part of that process. The process itself was interesting, and the whole dialogue that goes into that. So it's not even just that it's the end process, it's the process leading up to it. And hopefully, once we've adopted it, it'll then become a continual process of making changes and assessing our community and coming together to have those conversations and improving that practice.
All right, thank you. Item number 16, future board agenda items. We'll be doing many things, receiving the report on school district implementation of the Common Core, the new strategic plan, second interim budget, policy maintenance updates, reducing and/or discontinuing classified positions. I know, it still hurts. Approve the release of temporary certificated staff, and receive an energy report.
What's the energy report?
The energy and water report.
Who's doing that? Tony, are you doing the energy report? Or Crystal?
If you'd like to,
We'll go for you.
So Crystal, you're on for that?
So you're gonna talk about all the benefits of the solar
I'm
installation?
gonna, yes, the expectation definitely is to have some information on solar, and then to update the board on our Prop 39 projects as far as the funding from the state for energy conservation and so forth.
If we could include something in there on the solar, on the, if there's been any implementation in classrooms, or if there's the potential to do that, that would be interesting as well.
Wonderful. Thank you.
And also, if you're aware of any curricular links to the solar.
Well,
One of the big things that was out there, oh, we should do this because it's gonna feed into math, science. Has that happened?
I know, well, you know, Barbara is retired now, Barbara Lohman, but I know that last year, because she asked me, she came to me and she asked me that very question. We were promised this,
right,
you know, gateway into all of that, and so I went back to Solar City and found that documentation, gave it to her as well as staff at the high school. And I know that she was utilizing that in her instruction last spring, but she's retired. I can't speak to the rest of the department and if they've picked up on that as well.
Yeah. Cunha as well would be interesting to see if it's
Mhm.
been implemented, or just come up with a plan to propose
Yeah.
that it be implemented.
Okay. Item number 17, future events and dates. Next week, are y'all smiling? Yes. You're off. Have a wonderful ski week. February 16th through the 20th. Are you going, anybody going skiing? Any of you out there going skiing? Yeah? Principal for a day is February 26th. It's district-wide. How's that coming, Elizabeth? We're good?
We have a guest principal for each of our sites.
Michael, you won?
No.
Oh,
We have
okay.
Betsy Del Fiero, Deputy Chase, we have a park aide going to Kings Mountain, and Ron, the high school has 2 of his ELAC parents coming to
Fabulous.
monitor. And Mr. Ward, who do you have coming?
You already mentioned
And Mr. Dooley?
Ms. Saltabon from Wells Fargo.
Wow, good.
So a wide range of
Excellent.
partners.
Excellent. So that's February 26th. Also on that same day, the Chamber Education Celebration is at the Mavericks Event Center. And principals, will you encourage all of your staff to go? It's quite an event. Very uplifting, yes?
And to the business community, we encourage all of you to go. And if you have a crisp $100 bill, we would love to give it to a teacher to support their supplies in the classroom.
Going into March, there's a DLAC Parent Committee meeting, March 2nd here at the district office. Chamber Education Committee meeting, I'll be there. Open house at Cunha. Second semester ends on March 6th. Parent-teacher conferences at the elementary sites March 9th through the 12th. And we'll be back here March 12th. And we're going to need to return to closed session. So I'm going to adjourn the open session and return to closed session.